For one of the case study projects, I chose to do kudzu as an invasive species. So here in the intro slide, there are two pictures of kudzu overtaking grounds. Both of them are in North Carolina because I'm focusing on kudzu as an invasive species in North Carolina. So yeah, with that, let's begin. The origins of kudzu in North Carolina. Or Kudzu was first introduced in North Carolina in 1876 at the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition, which is now known as the first ever World Fair. It was popularized as a decorative plant in the 1920s and 30s. That's when it saw its first usage, so it wasn't really affecting anybody at this point. It wasn't super invasive because it was on a small scale. But as time went on, eventually it became heavily used as an immersion. It became a tool to prevent erosion. So the Soil Conservation Service in, I believe, 1935 tried to prevent erosion, especially in the Dust Bowl places like that in the South where agriculture is very important. They tried to use kudzu as a preventative measure for erosion, which led to them spreading it everywhere, and that's kind of what allowed it to become the invasive species it is today. But when farmers were using the kudzu, they found that it wasn't really that great. It was honestly pretty hard for them to keep using it because of the fact that it would grow, and it would slowly start to take over the actual farmlands. And yeah, and here in the picture we see farmers planting kudzu. These are on farmlands, and they are just trying to again prevent the erosion, which is kind of how it got its popularity. Now, the impact of kudzu on the biosphere. Kudzu is particularly harmful for its effect on the surrounding plants and animals. The main reason is due to the way in which kudzu grows. When it grows towards the sun at whatever rate. Thus, it grows over other plants, essentially suffocating them due to a lack of sunlight. So, because of the way kudzu grows, it follows the sun no matter what, which means it will grow in any direction. And paired with this, another way in which kudzu is harmful to life is that of the rate at which it grows. It can grow up to 1 foot a day, and that may not sound like a lot, but for a plant, that's extremely fast. And when you pair different plants together over time, it leads to a lot of overtaking. Now, kudzu, this is one of the main impacts on the biosphere. There are other ways in which kudzu has an impact on the different spheres, and we'll see that later. Um, so this is an example of late stage kudzu growth, and it just kind of shows what happens when kudzu takes over. As you can see with the video, the entire hillside is taken over and covered with kudzu, which just kind of shows how immersive and how powerful and invasive it really can be. All right, now let's look at kudzu in the different spheres. So due to the speed and growth habits of kudzu, other plant life is often smothered and buried under the layers of kudzu, which was discussed a little bit earlier. Kudzu interacts with the biosphere as well as the atmosphere. It interacts with the soil and environments, causing nitrogen oxide emissions from soil to rise. What this does is it aids in ozone pollution and urban smog. And studies have been conducted, and it shows that kudzu and the amount of nitrogen oxide it causes soil to release, um, which is a byproduct of kudzu's interaction with the nitrogen cycle. Um, it's actually Kudzu is the number one cause of urban smog in areas that are not um, highly populated enough to have urban smog, but still do because of the amount of nitrogen oxide it puts into the atmosphere. So now let's look at the biosphere. Kudzu interferes with the food chains of ecosystems. So again, touching on something mentioned earlier, it will suffocate other plant life, and plant life is very important to the food chain of ecosystems because everything is dependent on that plant life. Now, animals, they lose key plants and nutrients from those plants when the kudzu smothers those things. So it's really harmful and it impacts a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So kudzu summarized, as you can see, the bus is completely overtaken. And that's probably, kudzu has probably been in that area for, I'd say, 1 to 5 years at this point, and it's just overtaking everything. Now, kudzu was introduced into the southern United States and slowly began to take over the lands as it became used more and more. It harms most aspects of living life, including the plants and animals it overtakes. Now, kudzu also interferes with other living aspects, such as the human economy, and therefore qualifies as an invasive species. So, another way in which the kudzu interferes with life is on the human economy. Um, so kudzu causes a lot of suffering for the plants and animals that it overtakes, and it can actually overtake plant life and like farms and all that. So what that does is it creates an issue within the economy because that crop that is expected income is no longer actually going to be able to be used. So it's just little things like that that kudzu interferes with different aspects of life. That's all for today. Thank you.